everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Creatives Podcast. I am one of two typical co-hosts, Simone Campbell. Tevin, who's Kevin? Tevin could not be here with us today, so it will be our journey. Today we have a very special guest. We have the screenwriter, novelist, writer extraordinaire, Heeb. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we typically like to start at the beginning, at your origin story, if you care to share. What initially threw you into the creative industry?
Well, it wasn't until my mid-20s that I actually got into it, and up until that point, I come from, certainly not a family of creatives, and so the idea of being in this line of work was not something I ever really considered. So it wasn't until after college that I started reading a lot, and I really started to be very curious about what went on behind the pages, and and the creation of the things that I was holding, the things that I was reading. And I would say that's the beginning of it, and then from there, it just took me. It was just one of those things that immediately felt right, and in a way that I hadn't really experienced a lot in my life. Mm-hmm. So when something like that strikes you, it's something you need to follow.
You gotta take it, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Had you had any kind of inkling, with writing, throughout your youth or anything like that? And then it just caught fire later on?
No, there really wasn't any. And again, I grew up on a ranch in South Dakota.
Oh, okay.
And so, the idea of doing this for a living was not, there was no inkling, certainly, because there was no question of it. There was a very select few things that you would do with your life.
Right.
And so it wasn't until I had finished college and really started to see what opportunities might be out there that it really started to kind of sink in, that it was like, well, if you're going to, that it isn't some magical occupation, it's something that people do. You could do it too. Mm-hmm. That's really what set me on the path.
Absolutely, yeah. And seeing yourself, I think it's so huge, because then that makes it possible, in whatever it is that you're pursuing.
Yeah, that was big. And I mean, just surrounding myself with the right people really helped a lot too, and finding encouragement wherever you could, but also just kind of this idea of this thing has found you, mm-hmm. rather than I found it, and it was something that just became something that a passion. Perhaps it had always been there, and I never uncovered it until that moment. Mm-hmm. But as soon as it was there was no question. There was really no going back from it.
Absolutely. No, that's huge. You took the plunge, and it seems like it's absolutely been worthwhile.
Yeah.
I'm curious. What does storytelling mean to you?
That's such a great question. So the first book that I ever read that really made me want to write was Child of God by Cormac McCarthy. Mm. And I think because there was a lot of mystery behind what it was I was reading. Stories, of course, the definition is up to whoever's listening, whoever's telling it. And for me, there was such a mystery to the story that he was telling that I understood he was telling me a story. I understood I was reading a story, mm-hmm. but it wasn't told in a way that, there was the obvious beginning, the obvious middle, and the obvious end. There's so many things happening behind the scenes. And I think that whether that was his intent or not, whether that was the way that I was basically taught to understand what a story was, that was the way that I interpreted it. And to this day, I still think that so much of good story is that mystery that's behind whatever it is you're watching, whatever it is you're reading. Mm-hmm. That's the big thing for me, is the mystery. And if I'm able to do that, then I think I've succeeded. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean to mystery in a way to confound your viewers or your readers.
Right.
I just want to stir in them that something that certainly stirred in me the first time I read a book that really had power.
Mm-hmm. That's huge, and you hold so much power, right, as the writer, to kind of ignite these inner worlds that people have never been to before.
That's generous. Yeah, I mean, it's true too, and certainly once I started working in film, I mean, it's not an ego thing. I mean, a movie can't exist without a screenplay, mm-hmm. And so there is. That word that you used is true. I promise I never think about it in those terms. Yeah. But it is true, certainly on the screenplay side of things, and it's nothing I take for granted. I promise you that. It's such a wonderful opportunity that I have.
I love the humility. Yeah, I didn't mean to deify you for a moment, but no, it is, to be in that space where you get to kind of fulfill your own creative drive, but also, have the opportunity to like touch people, and in viewers and inspire.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, I think that was a big part of me, for me, was the inspiration. Again, to come back to the, child of God, it was that exact thing. I was like, man, I would love to make somebody, if it's just one person, that's great, but make somebody feel the way that this book has made me feel. Like, to me, that, we talk about value all the time. And I can't, for myself personally, I can't understand what could possibly hold more value than what that, something like that can make you feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, is there's a tangible moment, if you have an example, when you realize that your writing made an impact on someone?
I don't think I'm probably the right guy to ask for that, just because, I think that sitting in an audience where your film is being screened and you don't know anyone in the audience and someone laughs or somebody gasps, that's pretty great, because that's genuine. Because
Absolutely.
you'll do a screening for friends and family, and because they're friends and family, they're gonna enjoy it, and they're going to laugh when they're expected to laugh, and
Right.
and say nice things afterwards. But that moment is really great, because you are seeing an impact, and it seems to be a positive one, and that's huge for me.
Yeah, no, that's so important. Like you said, yeah, they don't need to do anything, and so it's authentic.
Yeah.
And that's so exciting and so gratifying. What have been some of your favorite projects that you've worked on over the years?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, because I'm really selfish with my time, and if I'm not enjoying a project, I can't just slog through something. I can't. I drop it pretty well. When I say drop, that's not fair, because there are so many things that I'll return to. But I recognize that moment when I'm not enjoying it, because I think that the reader or the viewer is going to be able to feel that. If I'm not enjoying it, how the hell are you supposed to enjoy it? How am I supposed to expect you to enjoy it? And so for me, it really comes down to, if I'm writing, I'm generally enjoying the hell out of it.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, I've done a lot better job of recognizing and accepting that it's not happening today. And I think that's put me in a more comfortable position in life.
Absolutely. So that's so fortuitous with the conversation I was just having with some friends of experiencing moments authentically, and like honoring those things as they arise. Because yeah, you're right. People can tell whether you're hard-sended or not.
Yeah, yeah. And I just have no interest in I think it's because I recognize there's just no way I would want my name on this project if I'm just feeling,
Right.
on the fence about it in the first place. It's only when those surges of electricity are happening that I feel like it's time to, to do some writing.
Yeah. What sparks that? What kind of work, or whatever that looks like for you?
Yeah. I always say that there's like, anybody who's watching this who knows me at all, I always say that there's like I always think of it as like a knot at the base of my brain here. And I feel like throughout the day, every day, I'm just like pulling at that knot a little bit, but I don't make a lot of progress a lot of the time. And I'm not aware of it happening.
Right.
But at some point, something, a string will come loose. It might not untangle the entire thing. It rarely ever untangles the entire thing. But when it pulls loose that a little bit, I'm able to, that's generally when it's like time to sit down and write. And I'll recognize that. And it's not, I'm not just sitting there, like staring at a wall and all of a sudden it just like kicks in. I'm like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where I guess, I make myself available. And man, once you type those first, couple words, then I know really quickly that something has happened as far as like, regarding tangle, that knot in the base of my skull.
Yeah, and it's unraveling, and you're following that string.
Feels great. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of those when, once you get to the end of that, you're just like, this is going to take a while to get to the next one. It's frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely. This question is also kind of for me. I'm just curious. Do you plan what you write, or do you just follow that inkling and then you just dive in?
Very rarely. Yeah, very rarely. I don't know. I don't know where the stories come from. I don't know, that if somebody tells you they do, I think that they're probably, lying to you. But I think the story begins for me, and usually it begins just like a sentence. Whether it's a screenplay or a book, it generally begins as a sentence for me. And then I'll follow it till it ends. But I generally don't know if it's going to be a real project until I know the end. So basically what happens is, if you just think of it in a 3-act structure, not that it happens this neatly, but if you think of it in a 3-act structure, it's basically, I'll get that first act written down, and then I know, and then maybe if I'm lucky, I'll know what the ending is. And then it's up to me to find out what happens in between.
Right.
And that's a lot in between,
The
right?
meat of it, really, yeah.
Yeah,
You got
yeah.
both slices of bread.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of meat to fill it up. And it's one of those things where that's when I know that it's like, you can almost see the finish line. Even if you're 200 pages away, if it's a novel, or, even if it's 65 pages away on a screenplay, that's when I know that, like, okay, that's an ending. That is the ending. I know that that's the ending. So how do we get to that point? It's kind of cool because it's, I'm not a big puzzle guy, but it is very puzzle-like in that way.
Yeah.
And it's just trying to figure out all those answers that are necessary to get to that end that you need to get to.
Absolutely. And it's probably, really engaging with the joy of just exploration, in which I love that. Yeah, you've kind of personified, it's not about the destinations, about the journey. Like, you're like, I got that figured out.
Yeah.
The most interesting stuff is like everything in between.
Yeah.
Huge. I love it. I'm curious if there are certain genres that are attractive to you, or like, how would you describe your style too?
Yeah, it's great. A great question. So I've always just been interested I've always had a tough time with, like, if it's a movie, let's say white collar crimes, white collar anything is really tough for me.
Yeah.
And, it's just a matter of connection. I just didn't grow up in that world. I have always been very interested in just like, it's like the broadest themes to deal with, but life and death is very interesting to me, but also crime, and I generally, the stuff I write generally has something to do with a pretty massive crime. We have one life, we have one death, and it's pretty interesting to follow someone's movement toward that death. And as a writer, it's very rare that anything I write ends without, somebody dying. And I think, if you want to get psychological about it, obviously there's an anxiety to it, right? We're always worried about all the things that could kill us.
Yeah.
And I think that, I think that's probably where kind of fuels the stories that I'm interested in, right? Because it doesn't seem, nothing else really seems big enough to me to write about.
Yeah.
And that's not to say though there isn't a place for those stories. I love small little stories. One of the best movies I've watched recently is called Small Things Like These with Cillian Murphy. I don't know if you've seen that.
I love Cillian Murphy, but I have not seen that movie.
Yeah.
Sorry, you got excited.
It's wonderful, but
okay.
But it's one of the smallest stories you could ever watch on screen, and spoiler alert, but like, it's not about life and death. There's no life and death involved in it. It's an incredible. I couldn't write a story like that. There's no way I could write a story like that. It's such a beautiful story that I know for myself personally, it's too small for whatever reason. I couldn't tell a story like that. But like I said, there's so much space for all those stories out there, and I can appreciate any and all stories. But for me personally, that's what it comes down to. It's always, it seems to be life and death. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and you found your calling, I guess, so to speak. So, yeah, what is higher? Like, what stakes are higher than life and death?
That's the question, right?
Wow.
Yeah. Certainly, the soul is, a person could argue that, like, if we're talking about that's a separate idea, First Reformed with Ethan Hawke is one of my favorite movies ever. And, it's very much about the soul. And I'm very touched by those types of movies as well. But I feel like for me there is just like, and I would love to someday prove myself wrong, but I definitely feel that.
But right now, this is you.
Yeah, I know who I am right now.
Absolutely. No, that's great. And just understanding a little bit more about the structure, because, if you think about crime dramas, oftentimes, it starts with the death and then it's like unraveling everything afterwards. But you said you end with that.
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
Well, varies from story to story.
Yeah.
And sometimes, let's see, I'm trying to Rolodex stories in my head, but doesn't always end with the death, I guess. But it's that question of reaching your fate and like, all the factors, not just people, but just all the factors that play into that fate. Whatever that fate is, even if it isn't on screen or at the end of the book, death, because I think that, we've seen great movies and read great books where a book or movie doesn't end with death, and it's far more horrifying than if it had ended in death.
Yeah, some fates are worse than death. Yeah. This is true. Yeah. But kind of following the unraveling, regardless. Yeah,
and that's, those are the things that, are endlessly fascinating for me.
Absolutely. I know, I love this. This is fascinating to me too. So what are you working on right now? And maybe what's around the corner?
So I'm one of those people that I'll work on a project and then I'm totally happy to let it sit for 6 months to a year or longer.
Let it simmer.
Yeah, absolutely, because I know that generally speaking it's going to be trash. And the thing that's interesting, and I don't know if this is, you've interviewed so many people, I don't know if this is, more universal, but the problem is that when you write something that you're like, this is the greatest thing ever. This feels, I feel so great. It has to be the greatest thing ever. Yeah. And then you let it sit for 6 months. You come back to you're like, whoa, there are a lot of things wrong with this, and a lot of things I need to fix.
Yeah.
And so that's why I do that. So to answer your question, I have so many things because I've been working for so long that like you never really know what's going to be next. But I just finished a screenplay that's kind of my first foray into like more of a border drama or border thriller, I guess. And we'll see where that goes. But it's for me the biggest thing is just to have something to work on, know. And like I said, at this point, I'm lucky enough that whether it's a novel or a screenplay, there's always something going on. And as you know, because I know you've interviewed so many filmmakers here in Albuquerque, we have so many opportunities to make short films.
Oh yeah.
And so I always keep that in mind too, that even if a feature film's not happening in the moment, there's so many people who want good scripts, so many people who are very energetic and very passionate. Your last guest is an extremely passionate person, and that they're just wanting an opportunity to make something. And so that's one of the great things about living in New Mexico is just that if say a big project is simmering or a big project is just not going to get off the ground, that in the meantime there are going to be opportunities. And so that's kind of what I try to focus on is like remembering that it's not all about the big projects because we live in such a great state for filmmaking.
Oh yeah,
right?
big time.
I try to keep that in mind. It's like don't forget that you can always work on a 15-minute script as well. So that's my approach to it.
I love that. Yeah, and also that sparks another interesting question. How do you feel like being in New Mexico, not only with like the practical aspect, being surrounded by such a strong community, but also being in New Mexico where we like high crime, a lot of intense things happening around every corner. I'll just say that. How does that affect your writing?
I mean, you'd be a fool not to rip stuff from the headlines for sure. Yeah. You'd be a fool not to go talk to people on the street if you're a writer or if you're an actor for sure. Because I mean, the things you're going to learn that we talked earlier about being authentic. It's about as authentic as it can get.
That's true.
Right?
Have you done that?
Yeah.
That's huge.
I don't know. I've gotten better about it in recent years of stopping and talking to people because my instinct is not to be that person. I want to be left alone. I want other people to be left
Right.
alone. I want to leave other people
You're
alone.
like-
But I did learn that it's like mostly every time I sit down and talk to somebody, they're going to say one thing. I had recently had an experience. I was out biking, and I came across this guy, and I sat down and spoke with him, and it was just a 10-minute talk, and I walked away with a new idea. I was like, oh, he'll never know this, but I'm stealing his idea.
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
not like it was a movie idea, but it was one idea that I'd never really thought about, and I was like, that's obviously something that a character in something I'll do will talk about at some point, because he had, he was himself, fully himself, and because of that, the way that he spoke just struck me in such a way that immediately I was like, that's a character in a book at some point in time.
That's the one. Wow, you never know. Like you were talking about, you never know what'll spark a creative idea.
Yes. Yeah. And I know with what you do over at the box, like those things are those things come in handy for you too, I'm sure.
100%. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because you're being called, and quickly you're having to come up with
Yep.
and so I would imagine with what you do, the exact same thing could really pay off for you too.
Yeah. I guess it's a similar process, just to like 20 times speed.
Yes, I'm super lucky that I'm not on a time. I can sit with something for three years if I want to. Yeah, you've got split second.
That's
5
true.
seconds. I don't know what the rule is at the box,
all of the
but
above, kind of,
yeah.
yeah. But I love that, because you really you get to let a project marinate, and let your creativity marinate. And follow it and see how it evolves. I'm curious how like the workshopping process looks for you. I think it's really easy for criticism kind of to weasel its way in, especially as a writer. But if something isn't working, or maybe you get inspiration elsewhere that kind of contradicts an idea, how do you handle that?
Yeah. At this point, I'm lucky enough to have a couple of trusted sources. So I have a couple of people I turn to for feedback. I'll generally do a table read for like a feature, even if we're talking way before pre-production. I just want to see if it's, first of all, how it sounds. Obviously, does any of that is any of the dialogue working, and then of course ask the people afterwards, and hope that hope that the people you bring in, the actors to read, can understand that I'm secure enough that you can just say whatever you want.
Right.
That's the big thing. Trying to find people who are honest like that. But
Huge.
as far as the screenplay as kind of a physical object, I have a couple of people that I'll always send it to, people who I trust. I have when they'll read something, I know that whatever they're going to give back to me is going to be helpful in some way. And then beyond that, if I can do a table read, and then. As far as like the feedback goes, that's always interesting from person to person, because I try my damnedest to obviously I'm going to listen to everything, because they're good enough to give me their time to come and read, right?
Yeah.
Or take the time to read it. The trickiest part for feedback is always going to be like being able to isolate what is good feedback, and what you can incorporate into your screenplay or into your book, because sometimes the feedback will be more about the person who's giving the feedback. Well, I wouldn't have done this in this situation. It's like, well, yeah, but the character's not you, and that's what you kind of have to work around. Is like, as soon as you find that feedback, that's like, make sure and take advantage of it. The big thing for me is to always be open to everything, and then kind of figure it out from there. Because I want all the feedback possible, but I think that at this point I've been in the game long enough that, like I said, I'm going to know what's going to work for me.
Right. Yep. At that point, you're practiced and you know what's coming next.
Yeah.
As much as you can, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as we are kind of starting to round out, first of all, where can people find your work?
My novel, The Lucky Clover, can be found on my publisher's website, and the website is shotgunhoney.com, shotgunhoney.com, and then it can also be found on Amazon. And then, as far as film stuff goes, sometimes you can see them at film festivals. Depends on if I have a film in the film circuit. But
Sweet.
those are the main places you can find my stuff right now.
Cool.
I don't have a website. I know a lot of writers do that. I think that I think there's a question of ego for me, and so I
like
don't
that, yeah.
I don't necessarily, I don't have that. I don't really do the socials really at all. I don't think that's probably terribly good for the head. I think it's better to try to stray from that.
There's absolutely truth there,
Yeah.
especially in the creative industry. Here.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, again, hope everyone is remembering this. So one question we always like to close on, if you had to give a piece of advice, either in a couple bullet points, a line, a paragraph, whatever it is, what advice would you give to people entering the creative industry?
Read everything. And if you can, watch everything. And we're in a very, we're in a great place in 2020. I know you don't hear that ever. We're in a great place in 2026.
First person to tell me that.
I know. I'm the bearer of good news, but it's true. You have so many options. If you want to get into writing, acting, filmmaking, whatever, we are so lucky because we have access to so much shit. It's crazy.
It's true. It's everywhere.
Unbelievable how, and I think we take it for granted. I really do. I think the instinct to be negative is very strong. I think for that specific question, we should be very positive because we have the opportunity to watch so many things. We have the opportunity to read so many things, and I'm a very strong believer in getting your hands on any type of medium that you can, and once you do, allow yourself the opportunity to engage with it and really think about what's the author up to, what's the director up to, what's the screenwriter up to, because I have no problem with just sitting and vegging out watching a movie. But if you want to get, I really think that's important, is to remind yourself that I'm here to engage too, because you can engage and enjoy at the same time. And I think there's sometimes, maybe a negative connotation with the idea of engaging, that it's like, oh, well, you're removing all the fun out of it. But I really think that again, if you want to get into writing, directing, acting, it's, what do we have to draw from but from the things that came before us, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean to copy it, but it means to understand what they did, admire what they did, and then see if you can, add to that.
Add your own flavor. That's huge. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much. It's been such a wonderful conversation.
You're welcome.
And again, time always flies, as we always say.
Turns out it did, yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
always. So again, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
Wonderful. And thank you all for tuning in to another fantastic episode. Thank you again so much to our sponsors, Studio 519, Arm Entertainment, Army Free TV on your Apple and Roku devices, and also Channel 96, Channel 27. Of course, YouTube to all of our loyal subscribers. Thank you so much. If you're not a loyal subscriber yet, join us. Please like and subscribe. And once again, I am your co-host. Host solo today, Simone Campbell, and we will see you next time. Thank you, guys.